good. Well, we appreciate everybody being here tonight. Let me tell you, these last 2 days have been my favorite 2 days in school all year. When I think back to this time last year, we were starting to get a sense of what was happening with COVID. And before we knew it, we were closing before spring break, and seeing all of the kids back in buildings and walking in, riding buses, coming to school. It has just been an awesome 2 days for us here in Upper Arlington. So for parents, I'm sure you are going through tons of transitions right now with your students. And so tonight's webinar, which who would have known, we started this planning back in November. And we are just really excited to welcome Rosalind under the topic of supporting your children's well-being during a year of transitions. And so this is so timely, and I am going to just let you know that this is part of a series that we are trying to offer to our community just around the importance of students' sense of well-being and belonging, and our role as community members, parents, staff, and all of the folks involved in helping to reinforce the important strategies for belonging and well-being for our students. I want to give a huge shout out to our school counselors who helped to coordinate this. They are a direct resource to all of you when it comes to making sure that our kids are well cared for during the school day and beyond. We also want to say a huge thank to the Upper Arlington Education Foundation. They are our partners in offering this series of webinars around well-being, and their motto of enhancing what matters most. What could be more important than well-being and the sense of belonging? So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Nancy Rapport, who's going to do the introduction of Rosalind.
Good evening, everyone. Before we get started, my name is Nancy Rapport. I'm a school counselor at Jones Middle School. I just want to give a couple of housekeeping items, which are that we will be listening to Rosalind for about 55 minutes or so. And then around 7:30, she is going to answer questions. And so if you have questions as she presents, please be sure to make note of those, and we will have a question and answer session at the end. So from where we learn to where we work, Rosalind Wiseman fosters civil dialogue, and she inspires communities to build strength, courage, and purpose. She is the founder of Cultures of Dignity, which is an organization that shifts the way communities think about our physical and emotional well-being by working in close partnership with the experts of those communities, young people, educators, policymakers, and business and political leaders. She is a multiple New York Times bestselling author and is best known for being the author of Queen Bees and Wannabes, the groundbreaking bestselling book that was the basis for a movie and Broadway musical, Mean Girls, and was fully revised for a third edition. Wiseman is the author of the Owning Up Curriculum, which is a comprehensive social justice program for grades 4 through 12, and it's in widespread use across the world. Most recently, she published the Distance Learning Playbook for Parents, How to Support Your Child's Academic, Social, and Emotional Development in Any Setting. She's been profiled in or written for the New York Times, Time Magazine, and the Washington Post, among others, and is a frequent guest on the Today Show, Good Morning America, CNN, and National Public Radio. She currently lives in Boulder, Colorado, with her husband and 2 sons. So Rosalind, if you were here with us in person, right now we would be giving you a thunderous round of applause. So instead this evening, I hope that you will feel the warmth and the energy of the Upper Arlington community. Welcome to you, and thank you, Rosalind, so much for being with us this evening.
Okay, hi, yeah, thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Kathy, and thank you with everybody in Arlington who made it possible for me to be able to be with you, to meet with your students, to meet with your kids, to be able to speak to the parents of younger children last week. And then here we are with people who have children that might be a little bit closer to my children's age. And because I have 2 boys actually, and one is a senior in high school. And so tonight, really the goal is to not waste your time. And one of the one of the things I was realizing while I was getting ready was that I have this like light that's like coming out of my head. So it looks like, I don't know, I try everything, you know, it's like you do everything you can, and then you realize there's like this little thing like out of your head. So now that I've mentioned it, if I hadn't said anything, you probably would have noticed it. But here's where we are. And this is the intention of being here together. And just, you all have gone through, today is Tuesday. You you had your kids go back to school yesterday. And so things are maybe a little bit all over the place. And so I wanted to share that, like, as a way to bring it in, that this is how, it happens in all different kinds of ways. And that's what we've learned. If we didn't know it before, that's what we've learned this year. So my goal is to not waste your time this evening. And so I want to start by just bringing everybody together and to create a teaching and learning, an intentional learning space. And so if you could just, sit down for a moment, just for, it might be, like, I don't know, cleaning the kitchen while you're listening to this, or doing laundry. That's another favorite of mine, to listen to webinars. But if you could just sit quietly for just 5 seconds. And I just want us to arrive here in this space. So just, put your feet on the ground, or just take a breath, or maybe if your shoulders are up, bring them down. And I just want us to breathe, just a little bit. So even unless you have something like a fire, you're making dinner and there's like the stove on, just take a breath. And one more. Okay. All right. So now we have come to this place, and we are going to be in community with each other so that we can help everybody to be able to go through the transition that you all are going through. And in preparation for this evening, I met with a group of high school people, 8th grade through seniors, who gave me feedback about what they advised me for this evening. And so that really informs the information and the content that I'm going to do for you today. But as Nancy said, I'm going to open this up to questions, because I want to make sure that this is a valuable use of your time. So if you have questions, jot them down, put them on your phone or something. And then we're going to have, we'll have time. I promise you, I'm not going to go for until there's 5 minutes left and then say, okay, everybody, questions. And then I only get to one question, and it's not a very good answer anyway, because it's too quick. So I promise you that we're going to put aside a good amount of time for questions. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to start with, what are the learning objectives today? And so the learning objectives today, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so I can see it a little bit better, is we're going to identify transition challenges. We're going to identify transition strengths. We're going to reinforce the foundation for happiness and engagement, like engagement for your child to be engaged at school. This is a big transition for them. To go, basically to have your first day of school be March 1st is a big transition. In fact, when I was listening to your kids in the advanced call, they really did an extraordinary job of really saying that to me. Like, this is going to be the first time that I'm in school this way for some of them, since for a year. So this is a big deal. So we're going to reinforce the foundation for happiness and for engagement. And we're going to also focus on some very, very clear suggestions for communicating with your child or communicating with the adults in your life as you all go through this transition. Now, I'm going to start also, I think it's really important to remember what the stakes are, and also what are the stakes and what's the foundation. And so this, of course, right here for me, right there, if I can do this correctly, is a village. And it takes, it's the African proverb of it takes a village to raise a child, which is true. That is true. But it's also complicated, and it's always been complicated, even before the pandemic. It was complicated. People had different viewpoints about how to raise children and how to be involved as an adult. And should you discipline, for example, other people's children when you see them misbehaving, and it's like, oh, is it my place? Or all different kinds of things. The village was complicated. And of course, what's happened through the pandemic is the village got really complicated. And the way that we've been talking to each other, and we've been losing our sense of civil discourse with each other, that also has really torn at the foundation or the fabric of our communities. And so one way of looking at this, as far as the pandemic goes, and also where you all are in transition, is that everybody has different bubbles. And, I can feel right now the bubbles changing. I just went outside for a walk. I live in Boulder, Colorado. It's gorgeous today. I was walking outside. We're pretty conservative where I live about what the rules are and people following the rules and masks and all of that. And you can feel it's a beautiful day and our rates are decreasing and people are getting vaccinated. Almost all, I think all of our teachers will be vaccinated by the end of the month. You can feel people's bubbles changing. And that's a transition. And when transitions happen, people can respond to them in different ways. And we also know that through the pandemic that people had very strong opinions about other people's bubbles. And so that, and the way in which we navigate that can really impact the way that we see ourselves as support for each other and for our children. And so one of the things I really want us to think about, and I did this for the parents of younger children too, I just think this is so important, is I'd like for you to put on your phone, or if you can write it down, what do you want children in your village to learn from you? Not just your child, but all the children. Like, what do you want young people to learn from you? Whatever role you are in the community, and you probably serve many different roles, what is it that you want them to learn from you? And so one of the things that I'd like for you to do is I'd like for you to put that into the Q&A. So we're going to use this as a chat function. Is I'd like for you, and it's totally obviously you're up to you if you want to do this, but I'd like for you to just think for about 30 seconds to just, process, and what is the answer to that question, and then put that in the Q&A. So what is it you want children in your village to learn from you? And you can also say it to me privately too. So I'll give you 30 seconds. You guys are doing great. Okay, flexibility and optimism, always here to listen without judgment, kindness, acceptance, we all matter, to be open-minded, not always follow the pack, respect and empathy, to ask for help. Somebody said in the very beginning, when you have enough give and when you have needs, it is absolutely okay to ask for help. And you are going to see me talk about this this evening. Thank you so much for this. Thank you so much for responding to my request. Okay, thank you. All right, so I'm going to put the Q&A away for just a moment for me. And what we're going to do is I'm now going to level set us on, so we have the village, right? That's our stakes, is that we want the village is going to be messy. It's going to be complicated. How do we, through these transitions, how do we have a path to move forward? And so the way that I'm going to ask you to think about this is to think about it with a set of principles. Principles guide our actions and our behavior. And so here are, let me just do this. These are some principles to guide us. So principles guide our thinking and our behavior. There's going to be a million different ways in which things can go down. But if we have a set of principles, then we can apply those principles to the situations that we find ourselves in. So these are the ones that I prepared for you this evening. The organization that I run, Cultures of Dignity, is basically obsessed with principles, that rules make sense when there are sound principles behind them. And so here's the first one. Everyone deserves to be treated with dignity. Dignity is inherent. It is given. It is not earned. You just get it. And so one of the questions I want to ask you all right now is to just think about, and you can just think about this, is who was the person that you respected when you were your children's age now? Like, especially if you have teenagers, who's the person, but anybody who comes to mind, who was the person that when you were growing up, you respected? So I'm going to give you 10 seconds to just think about that person. Okay. Now, here's my guess. I could be wrong, and you can talk to me about it in the Q&A, but my guess is that the person that you have in your mind is somebody that you respected, not because of the amount of money they had or not because of the position that they had. It was because of the way they treated people. And the way that they treated people was they treated them with dignity. So here's the rub about respect. And I wanted to highlight this, especially because it's such an important thing. And respect is such a confusing, actually complex word in our culture and in our language. And we've got to be really clear about the words that we use. We always have needed to be clear about the words we use, but we really need to be clear about the words that we use now. And so respect, when you think about it, you respected that person, maybe yes, because they were your grandfather, or yes, they were your mom or your dad or your teacher, but you certainly, and people certainly have people in those positions that people don't respect, because those people in those positions of respect didn't treat people with dignity, maybe even abused their position that they had and the authority that they had to get away with that. And so we have this thing of respecting our elders, which I get, and as a teacher, totally understand. The thing that we have to accommodate for, especially for older children and for teenagers, is that what happens is they go through the experience of occasionally, and these are powerful lessons, of seeing an adult who abuses the position they have to get away with not treating people with dignity. And so respect, the definition of it is to look back on someone's achievements and admire them, and not just about what they've achieved, but how they have achieved them. And dignity is very different. Dignity is a word that really, as I said, and this principle that guides us is that everyone deserves to be treated with dignity. Everyone has inherent worth. So the next principle is no one knows everything, together we know a lot. So here's a really good example. I've worked with teenagers and 6th grade through 12th grade for so long, more than 2 decades. I have a lot of experience in education with that. I have a lot of interactions with people that age, but it doesn't mean I know your child. What it means is I have expertise, you have expertise, and then we all work together to be able to build and strengthen the village. We want to be easy on people and hard on ideas. And we live in a culture that really likes to do the opposite. And so what I'm asking you to do as an adult in your community, in the ways in which you show up to meetings or with your children, or anything from the grocery store to the sports, sitting in the sports activities, anything, to meetings you have about the school, to anything, is that you really focus on, we want to be easy on people and hard on ideas. And when you're easy on people, you actually have the ability to be much more rigorous and analyze the problem that you have much, much more effectively than when we're super, super angry or judgmental or frustrated at the person. So we want to separate those things, be easy on people, hard on ideas. We want to hold grace and space. And I know people have been talking about this a lot during the pandemic. For me, holding grace and space is a principle that incorporates, I want to give people the benefit of the doubt. I want, when people do things that are really frustrating to me or fall down on things or not come through the way I want them to, I need to hold grace and I need to be patient. But it also doesn't mean that we don't hold people accountable. Excuse me for my double negatives, but holding grace can also include holding people accountable. We just need to do it treating them with dignity. The next principle is that listening is being prepared to be changed by what we hear. This does not mean we have to agree. It does not mean we have to agree. It means that we walk into a situation with an idea that we are going to we're going to hear maybe an idea that might make us think about things in a different way. And that is not a terrible thing. That's actually a good thing. Asking for help, just like what we just saw in the comments, is that asking for help is a strength, not a weakness. So one of the things that I would have you do right now, this is your first super concrete thing I'm going to ask you to do, is that young people often at the ages that I'm talking about for this webinar, understandably go to their friends first to get help and to be able to figure things out. That is developmentally appropriate, totally makes sense. And this is where everyone is going to get into a situation where you are over your head. And when you get to a place where you have tried to alleviate a problem and it is not getting better and it's continuing or it's getting worse, then it is time to ask for help. Now, one of the mistakes we've made in education across the board is that we have said to young people, when you need something or when you've got a problem, go talk to an adult. If you're being bullied, go talk to an adult. If you're having a problem, go talk to an adult. But we don't give them skills around how to. or who to speak to, because some adults are good at this and some adults are not. And so one of the things I would have you do after this presentation, but not like 3 seconds after this, and like not 3 seconds afterwards, like don't be all enthusiastic, because for your age group, older children, when they see enthusiasm, that is really scary. So just, you know, relax. And so after, at some point in the next like 48 hours, what's really important is to say, you know, you're in 7th grade, you're in 11th grade, you know, obviously things are going to, you know, for an 11th grader, obviously things, you're going to have things that you might not want to talk to me about, but being able to talk to somebody is really important. So can we just sit down for like 5 minutes? All this is going to do is take 5 minutes. And I want us to separately think about what are the 3 characteristics of an adult that you think would be good that you would go talk to. What are the 3 characteristics of that person? And I'm going to come up with what the 3 characteristics that I think are important for an adult that you would talk to. So then you come up with your 3 characteristics. And then, and for example, judgmental, like for, in my experience with teenagers, is that an adult can be opinionated, but not judgmental. That would be a good criteria, a good characteristic. Somebody who's reliable, who comes through. Somebody who's honest with you, but treats you with dignity at the same time. Like those are the kinds of characteristics that you would be looking for. And then after you come up with the characteristics, then and only then do you ask your young person, like, who is a person that fits that criteria? And you can come up with a list of that too. And then you can share that with each other and see if maybe there's somebody who's the same that's on that list. So what we want to do is be able to create this as a social skill. So it's not just that asking for help is a strength, not a weakness. It's actually a capacity. And so you want to build the capacity for older children and teenagers about what is it that they need in an adult, what are the characteristics, and then who is that? So that when they're in the situation, they've already prepared for who is that person, and then they can more easily go there. All right, that's your first like big concrete takeaway. Hopefully that is helpful. All right, and then seek to align positive intentions with positive impact. So we talk a lot in any kind of social emotional learning program for children. There really should be a lot about intent versus impact. And really what I'm saying here is that we need to be, that this process, this principle is almost like a mindful practice of, are my intentions in alignment with the impact that I have with other people? And if not, or how do I know? And if they're not, am I ready to receive that feedback? Am I listening to be prepared to be changed by what I hear? So those are the principles that I really want us to focus on as a way to, as a driver to guide the behavior that we on how we talk to young people and how we talk to the people that care about or interacting with our children. So that these principles for me, dignity has been something I've always worked on, this thing of dignity and respect. But this is a framing, this principles framing has really been life and work changing for me. I just had a school board that was really in a contentious situation in another place, who was getting, after we had done some training with them, focused on the be easy on people, hard on ideas, to get through some of the difficult conflicts that they had been having, and that but were so hard on people that they were losing their ability to actually solve the problems. And so this can really get you from a place of being stuck to being unstuck. Okay, so we've got that. We have our principles. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to tell you about, this is another meta, like large thing, is about happiness. So your children are going through a lot of transition right now. And from the children that I talked to in preparation for this, some of them were super psyched about going back to school. Some of them were nervous about it. Some of them were deciding to stay at home for various reasons. And so as you go through transitions, this is even more important, is that, you know, really, like, we just want our children to be happy, right? And at the same time, happy, like, what in the world does that mean? It doesn't mean no conflict. It doesn't mean no disappointment. It doesn't mean no frustration in your life. That's not what it means. It does not mean getting into some fancy pants college. It does not. It does not mean that your parents get to like post on Instagram or Facebook all the fabulous things that you're doing and humble brag about you. That is not what is bringing children happiness. Believe me, it is not. So what is happiness? What are the component parts? So the component parts, and this is true for everybody, no matter how old you are, where you come from, it's like one of the things that brings us all together as humans is you have meaning beyond oneself, you have a sense of purpose, you have a hope of success, not a guarantee, that you have meaningful social connection, that you have satisfying work. You're like, for example, for young people, it's okay, I'm sitting in this class and I actually understand why this might apply to my life in the future. Like, I get it. I understand why. That can be satisfying work. Or working on something that makes you really curious and you want to find out the answer. That's also satisfying. And a place to process and find peace. And so these are the 5 things that really enable people to get through really hard times. And you don't have to do all 5 things every day to be happy. It's that when we're going, especially when we're going through transitions, we need to focus on these things as much as we can to be able to ground us in emotional wellness. And so for me, I have to tell you, for me, a place to process and find peace has been one of the most important lessons I have continuously had to learn in the last year. This morning, all morning, I was working with a district where we're teaching all of the people, all of the counselors, all the social emotional learning specialists. We're training all of them to work with all of their schools. And so we had a training today all morning. And one of the things that we talked about is that we have learned so much in the last year. In some ways, things, yes, we can talk about things that kids have not been able to do in their education, but it doesn't take away from a lot of the things that we've learned. And we need to really, like, that's something to really lean into, is what have I learned in the last year? And this criteria for happiness can actually help you process, well, what are those things? What has given me meaning and purpose? What has given me a hope of success? What has been meaningful social connection for me? What has been satisfying work? So that, and also then how do I move that forward? And so that's true for you as it is true for your children. All right. So, oh, I just went ahead and said that, sorry. Okay. So let's see, I want to just check and see if we're good with everything that people need. I'm just looking at I just want to check that Q&A one more time, just because of what y'all said, and make sure I'm okay. Okay, cool. So what's next? Let's see what's next. So okay, let's see. Come on, let's go. All right. So now we're going to go into the self-regulation part. And I was sort of laughing when I was preparing this for you all yesterday and today, about how important it is, because y'all have just gone back to school yesterday. So I can't imagine the physical plant of the schools having to like get everything ready for, and all the people in the schools trying to get everything ready for young people to come back. They need lots of gift cards. So like, I don't know what they need. They need lots of things. So self-regulation is incredibly important right now. I mean, it always is. And so one of the things that is really important to remember is that sometimes these things of self-regulation and emotional regulation are called soft skills. And that's actually literally a disrespectful way to talk about it, because if we talk about respect as like hard work and how you've achieved them, soft skills and the development of soft skills are hard. They are really hard to do. They're really hard to do. They're really hard to get good at, and they're really hard to maintain. And so soft skills are anything but simple, right? They're complex. They're difficult in the moment. They can be really difficult to regulate yourself. So self-regulation is the ability to direct one's behavior, emotions, and thoughts. And the result for young people is that children go on to become their own teachers, which is awesome in all different kinds of ways. And so this is what this like specifically is, that they're able to create more, they're able to innovate more, and they're able to think critically, because the way in which they're thinking, their anxiety goes down. And so we know, you have I don't have any statistics about young people's mental health, and I saw it in the Q&A, but suffice to say, do we really need numbers are helpful and numbers are very important, but it doesn't take away from the truth, which is that before the pandemic, we were seeing unprecedented rates of depression and anxiety and suicide amongst young people, and that the pandemic has exacerbated some of those mental health challenges, and how important it is for us, when it was always important, always staring us in the face, to be able to teach young people and to value their emotional wellness. And so the focus that we have had on their academic, on their GPAs, on the things where they go to school, about all of the things that are sort of the billboards of their success, when inside they are suffering from anxiety and depression, and are feeling like they themselves and their person is just a billboard of their successes, is incredibly difficult. And it is our responsibility as adults to be mindful and self-reflective of the things that we say, and to regulate ourselves, regulate our emotions, be self-regulating about how we're coming across, that either supports young people's emotional well-being or does not, and feeds this beast of anxiety and never being able to keep up. So we really do, these are hard conversations really hard, but incredibly important conversations for adults, especially of older children and teens, to have the courage to look at for ourselves. And so we're gonna go deeper. So emotional regulation is getting clear about your emotions and empowers you to define your own experiences. And emotions are real, but they aren't permanent. And so you can change the way you feel, which is actually one of the things that I have said to myself the most over the last year. This emotion I'm having right now is real. It's super real, but it doesn't have to last. I can move through it. And just even saying that makes me less anxious. So, and the more words you have to describe feelings, the more options you have to understand and communicate them. And so what that means is that young people, anyone's emotional intelligence increases, and people's anxiety decreases. So I'm going to give you an example that's really common for high school, where your child comes home, and they might be doing this today or maybe they'll do it by Thursday when they come home. My guess is Thursday, is that they're going to come home after 3.5 days of school, and they're going to say, I'm so stressed. I have so much work. And it's really hard to, I don't know what to do. And so the I'm so stressed is a very, very common, super understandable feeling. But what we have to do is get more granular about it, because there could be a million reasons why your child is stressed. And so the more that they can unpack the feelings, then the more they are going to be able to understand what their experience is. And then they're going to be able to articulate that to other people. So one thing you can do, and this comes from our tiny guides, which the counselors, which your counselors all have access to, is that this is from the emotional granularity tiny guide. So I'm bringing the excerpts of this for you all so that you can see this. So not granular is like sad or I'm so stressed. Granular is upset, crestfallen, dejected, weepy, what's that word? Gloomy, despair, sorrowful. And so we just want to get more and more granular about our experiences so that we understand them better. So I'm going to give you a little bit more from the tiny guides about this. So here is something, these are very short PDFs that are very simple, as you can see. So here's the example. Let's say that your friends blindfold you and put you on a roller coaster, right? I mean, that's the vision I want you to have. So you hear the click of the wheels on the track. You smell the grease from the fried foods. Your body moves from side to side as the cart twists and turns. Like how it's like, oh gosh, how old is this thing? You feel the wind in your face. You hear the person cry out next to you as the cart climbs a really big hill. So you're at the precipice, right? Which some could say was yesterday morning for you all. And now people are going to have very different reactions to that. And your children, when I talked to them, had very different reactions to that. And none of them are bad. So everybody feels different emotions in this moment, and it depends on your personal experience. So now I have to put on my glasses. So do you like roller coasters? Like, do you like roller coasters? Do you look forward to them? Like, yes, I love that feeling. Do you trust your friends that are going with you? Do you like surprises? Does lack of control upset you when you hear the clink, 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 and you think, oh my gosh, how old is this? How old is this thing? Is this bar is going to keep me in here? Does fried food make you sick? Or does funnel cake make you go, yes? Or does it make you go, ugh? Does it going fast excite or terrify you? Are these close friends or new friends you don't know that well? Did someone force you to do something scary when you were younger, and this reminds you of that experience? So all to say, when I was preparing for you all, I thought getting on a roller coaster is pretty much the best example I can think of having your first day of school March 1st. and that everybody's going to have different feelings about that. And there's two things that I really want to emphasize. None of it's bad. And you know who matters the most about this by far, that who we should be listening to by far is the children. All due respect to people like me who are supposed, who are not supposed to be, who are experts. No disrespect to the people who this is, they're experts in the field. None of us, no adult listening to this, nobody has had to be on the receiving end of virtual learning for a year. We are not the subject matter experts of being distance learning, hybrid learning, going through a pandemic when we're in high school. We're not. None of us also, by the way, grew up having no privacy because of social media, and in large part because our parents have been posting things about us since we were born. None of us have gone through this experience. We are not the experts of this. Young people are. They need the help to be able to take the feelings that they're having in their stomach or in their bodies. They need the help to be able to articulate them. And then we have to listen to them. Now, your students said in a couple of different ways that when I did the call with them, that they really appreciated the opportunities that they did have to be able to tell you about their feelings about various things during the year. And so I can just only tell you to encourage you to do this even just more and more and more. We have to listen to them because they are the experts of what this experience has been. And then we can take the accumulation of our wisdom and our life experience and being able to see sort of a longer term view and work with them in partnership to be able to do together what the school and the community needs. So to wrap it all up, you learn more words, you have more concepts, you have more emotional intelligence, you become a healthier human. And everybody who does this becomes a healthier human. And not even better, just as important is you're like way cooler to be around. So that's a really important thing because people are getting really angry at each other and doesn't help. Obviously it's not helping. And we don't trust each other, or we listen to things on social media, or we complain about things that we see on social media, but we don't confront the people that we're actually upset with. And as far as I can tell, really, as far as I can tell, posting things on social media, on Facebook or Instagram about what you feel about how the school is dealing or how education is going or anything like that, I'm not convinced that it helps anything. You might, maybe it's important for you to put out your feelings about frustrations with stuff, and that's important. My feeling is from my lens of looking at it as a community, as the impact of the community and impact on children, is I think it's way better to actually confront with dignity the people that you're frustrated with and not put it on social media. So I've just seen around the country, because I work in so many different communities, how destructive that's been. And so I really want to just encourage you to look at young people as the experts that they are, work in conjunction with them, and be able to build your community together based on those principles, if those principles resonate with you. Okay. So now we're going to get even more granular. It's like I started here bigger, and then we just get more and more and more specific. So conflict is inevitable. I don't care how lovely your community is. I've worked in all different kinds of communities, that all over the place, and everybody has conflict. And so one of the things I just want us to remember, I'm going to give you some pointers on like how we manage conflict even more granularly, is that we have to remember it's a moment, not a lifetime. And I would say, as a parent of teenagers, if you're frustrated at your teenager, this is really important. It's also true that the things that they're doing great is also just a moment too, right? It's always just a moment. It's a moment. But we don't want to get to a place where we sort of think like, oh my gosh, my child is doing this X thing, and they're going to do this for the rest of their lives, and they're never going to get out of it, because they can see that in our faces. They know how to read us. We want to keep it short, and we don't want to repeat. So when we're I think that when we're talking to our children and we're frustrated with them, and I think I think at least one of my children can hear me right now. So he's probably sitting there like looking at me, just, I'd love to show you his face. I bet it's like, yeah, right. Is you want to keep it short and don't repeat yourself. So keeping it short means I think any conversation where you're frustrated or angry should probably last no more than 3 minutes unless they want to engage with you. And I think you need to say your piece and then you do not repeat. If you find yourself repeating, which can be really easy, you can even say it like, oh, I am repeating myself. I'm going to stop because this is not helpful. Let me say it to you this way, and I think I said this to the parents of the younger kids, is that we're going to have countless opportunities to talk to our children about the same things, like, empty the dishwasher or load the dishwasher. I have said that to both of my boys, I don't know how many times, but I don't need to sit in that one time and keep telling them over and over and over again, because I get to say it like, many times a week. So it's like over a period of time, not just in this one moment. The next thing is I want you to keep it to 3 things that you want to communicate at most. And I'm like at most. And this would be the case for parents when you are this is the case for everybody, is that when you're talking to, so parents, talking to teachers, talking to an administrator, talking to a principal, talking to a coach, teachers, talking to a parent, talking to a colleague, talking to a student. There's a couple of reasons why, and I would strongly recommend, and I can put it in the chat actually, because we just did this morning with our professional development, is Dax Shepard's recent podcast with Adam Grant. It's a long podcast. It's like almost 2 hours long, but at the 80-minute mark, he talks about a couple of things that are really important. And one of them is connected to this, which is if you have, sometimes what we think, especially moms, I think we might have this, or lawyers too, is that you think you have to have like 400 reasons why you are right about something. And so you give a list of like, this is the reason why I'm right. 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 Because you think that if you can just present a logical argument, lawyers, if you can present a logical argument of all of these different reasons, the person is obviously going to say like, oh, you're so right. I will just completely disregard my entire way of looking at something. And I will completely acknowledge that you are 100% right about all of your reasons. Parents, I think we do that because we want our children to like, actually like, do you understand this? But the problem is that doesn't work. It's actually really counterproductive. There's a couple of reasons why. One is that we know actually that, and this is what Adam Grant talked about in his podcast, that people will, if you present 6 reasons why, he chose 6, the other person will look for the argument, the point of your 6 that they don't agree with. And then because they don't agree with that one point, they will disregard your entire argument. So that's the first thing. Second thing is people shut down. People cannot listen to you when you are talking 27 things. So the thing that I thought that was beautiful about the podcast, the second point is that he likened it to, you are asking, when you're talking to somebody in conflict with somebody, maybe think of it not as a debate, but as a dance, as in you're inviting somebody into this process. And if you were dancing with somebody like as a couple, you would not do 14 different dance moves right away, because the person on the other side of this would be like, wait, they would feel clumsy. They would feel like you're setting them up for failure. They wouldn't be able to dance with you. And so they would shut down, get frustrated, walk away. And so I want us to think about having difficult conversations in a similar manner. All right. And then I want you to really think about time and place. Time and place is everything. And so we really need to think about, and here's the thing I want us to really zone in on is listening possible for you and for the other person, not just for the other person, but for you as well. Okay, I want to check my time. All right, what else we got? Oh yeah. So for this older webinar, so I think there's a really important difference between curious questions, where the person acknowledges and wants to know more about someone's perspective and experience, and non-curious questions that dismisses the other person's perspective and experiences, and it feels like they're taking away the other person's dignity. So if you have more than one child and you have older kids, this thing of non-curious questions is a really important one. Now for us, for us, parents can sometimes do this too. Like, why are you being so moody? I think we're probably doing that less during the pandemics. It's like, well, because it's like, we can't go outside. We can't see our friends. It's been really hard. But anything like that of like, why are you angry? Why are you so upset? Why are you being so dramatic? All of those things are not questions. Those are not curious questions. Those are non-curious questions that are basically dismissing whatever you're seeing from the other person. And so that's a really important thing we need to acknowledge. And that never works when somebody says, why are you being so moody? When you say it like that, the other person is not going to actually answer you. They're going to walk away. If you think about it as the dance, they're walking away from you when you say that. So if you have a situation in your family that is a patterned conflict that you're having a really hard time with, my suggestion to you is this. I would ask you, say you've got two kids that are really, really fussing with each other. Or you can do this, obviously, you can do this with anybody, you and your partner. You can do this with you and your child. So whatever it is, the plan is that you're each going to take one, you're going to leave your phones away, and you're going to come to a table, neutral setting or a comfortable setting. And one person's going to go where they're going to speak for 2 minutes about what they're upset about. And they're going to say exactly what they don't like, and they're going to say exactly what they want. And then the other person is going to have 2 minutes to say what they don't like, exactly, what they don't like and what they want. Each side can ask a clarifying, curious question. Each side, or a couple, right? Curious question if they don't understand something, but you have to level set on what these curious questions are versus what a non-curious question is. And because it's family and we really know how to annoy each other, it's also really important before we even, level setting, before you start the 2 minutes, is that we got to level set on like no sighing, no raising an eyebrow, no rolling of eyes, like none of the, like no phone, looking at the phone, right? That's why you want the phone away. So, really, because who knows better how to get it under each other's skin than our family? So we need to really have some norms about how we conduct this. And then, by the way, so after you have your clarifying questions, then you can say, each side says, all right, this is what I heard. What's one thing I can do? What's one thing I can commit to making this better? And then you can leave it at that, after that commitment. And at the same time, we know that this is going to be messy. That people are not just going to go perfectly after this. So I would suggest 4 or 5 days later, having just a real quick comeback of reconvening of how's it going and where do we need to do better. And you can use my principles, by the way, if that's helpful to you, to be able to say, here's the ground rules, right? The rules about how we treat each other start from sound principles. So you can use the principles, if those are helpful to you, to create the foundation to have that kind of a difficult conversation. Okay. Let's see, 518, 618, let's see, where are we? Okay, right, okay. Now I want you to start thinking about your questions, okay, people? So Nancy, I'm giving you a little heads up on let's turn to some questions, or get people to start thinking about them. And because I want to honor my statement, which is I'm not waiting until the last 5 minutes to ask for people to ask questions. So I want to turn I've got a couple more things that topics I want to make sure that I cover with you all, but I want to check in with you now on what questions, comments, or concerns that you have. And Kathy or Nancy, I think, is going to facilitate them, and we'll go from there. So let's see.
All right, that's awesome, Rosalind. We are so excited to take on some of the questions that are here. And before we go there, I just want to thank you. This whole idea of students as experts and us working with them just really resonates with me. So I think that is just a huge, huge takeaway. So let me just kind of leap down through and see what questions we have.
I've got more. Don't worry if there's not a lot. I have many strong opinions about many things.
So the first question is, how do you manage the child who says that nothing is wrong?
Oh. But you're worried that there is something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, this is what I would do. This is actually what I have done. And I've had this with my own children, and I've had this with students as well. So if I have the feeling, but I'm not, first of all, I want you to trust your feeling. Second is, I would prefer that you not start scrolling through, if it's your own child, I would prefer that you not scroll through their phone. And here, it's not just about giving your child privacy. That's not exactly what it is. And it's not, but I really believe that people should be focusing on their relationships and building relationships of trust as much as they can, understanding that the tool that they've been given in their phones are very much in some ways built to bring out in some ways the worst of us. I mean, we can talk about there's lots of great things, but it's absolutely clear that it makes us insecure, to constantly poking at us about what we're not doing, or sort of coming to our worst instincts of things, lashing out at people before we realize it, invading privacy, all that kind of stuff. But here's the thing that actually concerns me the most for this age range. I think when parents look at what they're seeing online, what their children are doing, I've seen parents misinterpret what their children are posting. And so I just much rather have you, if you're worried, to trust your gut and sit down with your child and say, with no siblings around, by the way, and say, I want to talk to you for 3 minutes, unless you want to talk longer, and then I'll talk as long as you want. I just want to talk for 3 minutes. And which is, I have a feeling, could be wrong, I could be wrong. I have a feeling that things are off. Here's the reason why I think things are off. So you give one reason why you think things are off. And then you say, like, I could be wrong, but I want to make sure that if you're feeling overwhelmed with something, or you're feeling that you need help, that you have somebody that you can rely on. Now, as children get older, I would say, so I know as you're getting older, you might not want to tell me. You might worry that I freak out, whatever that means. So is there somebody that you and I both agree that you think is, like I think you think is smart enough, competent enough, all of that stuff that you can talk to, because everybody gets into situations that are overwhelmed. And so now here's the thing that's really scary and uncomfortable working with teenagers. You're basically leaving us a big crumb or a big seed, whatever metaphor you want to use, and then you're walking away. Because the chance of your child in that moment, and they could, but you can't rely on a child in response to an adult saying, oh my gosh, thank you so much for telling me. And now let me tell you all the things that I'm thinking. So really what you're doing, the art of working with teenagers, is leaving these crumbs and letting them think about it. Like, and you have to honor your agreement about the 3 minutes, right? Unless they want to talk more. So you've said your piece, you're up to your 3 minutes, and say, so, hey, I'm going to go and cook dinner. I'm going to go do whatever, but I'll be there if you want to talk, or, I'll be there whenever you want to talk. And then you leave. And then, you say, I love you, you show some kind of physical affection, and then you're out. You don't follow them around the room as much, or house, as much as you're really wanting to, because you're so worried about them that you want them to talk to you. So really the art of this is actually giving space and acknowledgement, which treats them with dignity, and also treats them with dignity to say, and now I'm going to give you and own your space, your privacy, your life. And I'm going to walk away so that you can make the decision about this. And so they sit there. This has been my experience working with teenagers a lot, is that they sit there and they're like, the feeling starts to grow of, maybe I should talk to them, right? Then they go, no, I don't want to talk to them because they're going to freak out. And you're like, no, maybe I should talk to them. No, I should talk to them. And it grows and grows and grows. And then all of a sudden you're doing like a million things. And then your child comes up to you and says, can I talk to you for a second? Which is never, ever, ever a second.
Thank you, Rosalind. The next question, which I think all of us ask ourselves sometimes, is how can we be optimistic and positive when we're not necessarily convinced ourselves?
Yeah. Okay. So I think it's really good to go back to this emotional regulation granularity thing, where you can say, I have said to my children, I'm working on feeling better. I'm working on feeling more optimistic. Right now, right at this moment, I'm having a feeling that's not so great. But I know that, things are going to change. And I usually, I mean, I've said various things, but I think it's really important to really affirm the importance of relationship in those moments. And so I have said very heartfelt, with what do you know what I mean? Is to say to them, and my relationships with you and our family is the thing that really helps me get through. And you can say, like, even when it's hard, because it's hard all the time, and I mean, or it can be. And my older child teases me all the time about how difficult I am. But the relationships are really what gets us through. And there have been times, by the way, that I have completely lost it. And, just as much as the emotionally regulating expert as I am, completely lost it. And then have had to say to my children, hey, I'm having a really hard moment. And, I'm okay. And we're okay. And that doesn't take away from how hard this moment is. And I'm going to go take care of myself. Or they see me taking care of myself, and it's going to be, we're going to be okay. And so that's how I do it when I'm feeling like I'm not feeling so good. I own it, and then I really am present with, and we can move to a better place. We can get through this to a better place.
That's great. So kind of the next question is following up to our first question about the child who says nothing is wrong. What about the child who then is adamant that they can take care of it themselves and doesn't need everyone around them to help?
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, okay. So there could be a lot of different reasons why they would say that. And some of them are really reasonable. So let me say it to you this way. Children always have a good, meaning understandable reason why they do things that you might think are completely insane. So, and what I mean by good is, from their perspective, they are doing something that is 100% logical. And the other reason why a lot of young people don't, they'll say, I can take care of this, is because that's developmentally appropriate. They want to take care of things on their own, which is, we don't want to, it's this fine line and balance between, we want to develop autonomy and we want them to be able to understand when they need to reach out and get support from other people. And they might not be getting the support from you. They might be getting support from others. So I think the most important is that they have somebody that they can really rely on to think through problems. But here's the other thing. I would ask that child, is any of the reason why you want to take care of this yourself, that you're concerned that I'm going to, and then you can fill out, like, this is what comes to mind for me, that I would make it worse, or I would make this situation more complicated by reaching out to people you don't want to, or sending an email to somebody that you don't want me to, or getting involved in a way that you don't want me to, or making this bigger than you think it is. I think I would name those things and ask them if that any part of that is accurate, and then say to them, so can you explain to me where you're, why you're coming, why have you made this assessment basically of me or the way I'm going to handle it? And then I think you really need to listen, because we can be involved. And I really think for the most part that parental involvement should be behind the scenes, especially for older children. We are behind the scenes, helping them think through a problem and helping them and comforting them along the way for the most part. When their physical safety gets threatened, or when they can't think through a problem and it's real, like we have a pattern that's getting worse, I think we get more visibly involved. Or if somebody is taking away their dignity, I think we get, sort of in that spectrum of, like, we get more visibly involved. But we want to, for the most part, enable them to think through these problems with us behind them, guiding them through the process, asking them good questions, mirroring back things that are important about their own self-assessment, or being honest with themselves about the things that they're saying. So I think it's important to listen to children about, is there, in the past, have I done something or demonstrated something that makes it less likely for you to come and talk to me about this problem? Like, what's worrying you about that? And you need to listen, because that's actually about your relationship. It's not just about this one issue. It's also about like the communication that you have with your children now and for the future. So it's really important to be able to get that feedback. And let me say, you might have very, very, very good reason for reacting, for getting as upset as you do, but as you might. But the challenge is that we have to be able to listen and engage in these and be this guide for our children in a way that they can hear. Otherwise, they won't talk to us and they will disengage. And I've certainly worked with many children who are very reluctant to talk to their parents because basically they're worried that they will lose control of the problem, and then they're going to be the ones that have to handle the social fallout or the consequences of it, not their parent. And that's an understandable concern. So again, I would just say, I would sit down and say, okay, I'm going to ask you this question, which is there a reason that, have I done something in the past or something happened in the past that makes it so that you're really reluctant to want to talk to me? Or have I reacted in the past in ways that make it reluctant for you to come and talk to me about what's going on?
I think this next question kind of goes back to your roller coaster analogy. What can we expect emotionally from our students after returning to 5 days in person? And what are some appropriate responses for us to all of these emotions?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I really, your counselors have all of the tiny guides, and there's one called emotional hijacking. One's called anxiety. There's one that's on anxiety. One's on frustration points. But there's one on emotional hijacking that I really hope you all are going to use because it's so simple, but it really explains what's going on for people when their emotions just take over and they're having a hard time processing what's in front of them. And one of the things that your student said, I have the notes from here, and I think this is a really, it really caught me and for my own parenting, I have to say, is that I think the person was a sophomore, said that so many parents have been so focused on their children being able to go back to school in person. And that's been this drive of like, go back to school in person, go back to school in person. And that once we get there, it's like, okay, I'm paraphrasing from what the student said, but like, okay, we're back in school. And now because parents are so focused on catching up with the loss of education that's happened this year, that it's like, okay, now you're back in school. And so now you have to do all these things to catch up. And when the students said this, there was unanimous consent amongst the other students of like, oh yeah, like, and we have been dealing with it, like, we are not going to be able to deal with this at all. And we're not gonna be able to do that. And in fact, actually, I have it highlighted here. Yeah, here we go. Here, this was here are the comments when I said to them, well, then give me some advice to tell the parents. And one of them said, be more indulgent than usual. You gotta love teenagers. You got to be more indulgent than usual, but that doesn't mean like get them a car if you can. That means like get them some hot chocolate in the beginning of the day. And like, that's, like that kind of stuff. Don't be giving crazy things to them if you can. If your child is in a bad mood, then be a little bit more nice. Don't ask why you're being moody. And the kid said, there's going to be a lot more chaos. And let's see if there's one more thing that they said. Shoot, I was looking for it. Oh yeah, here we go. That, they said, we sometimes act like we hate school, but we don't. It's the place where we can connect with our community. It's important to us in every kind of way. And then there was this feeling of and I can't, because it's up above, this feeling of like, give us a break when we come back, because we're not going to be able to just hit the ground running as soon as we get there.
Wow, that is powerful. This next question, I think, kind of ties in nicely. Social media and social media groups have become very important to our children. Specifically, now that we are physically isolated, these groups sometimes isolate children, specifically when some kids are different from the main group. What would you say to a child that feels like he or she is being removed from the groups just because they're different?
Okay, so there's a couple things I think about that. One is what actually first came to mind was about a group chat. So young people, we talked about this a little bit in the student group, that group chats mean a lot of signify different levels of intimacy, of levels of friendship amongst teenagers, like 7th grade and above. And so, some kids will have lots of different group chats for things that they're, if they're on like a soccer team or basketball team or whatever, theater group, they'll have a group chat for that group. But then, and this is especially true, I think, with boys, is that a friendship circle, like your closest friends, you're in this group chat, and that's a really big deal. It's like a group chat is the place where you can be yourself. And if your parents, especially your mom, like looked at what was in the group chat, she would be horrified. That's basically like true across the board. I don't care how nice and polite your children are. And I don't mean that facetiously. Let me take that back, because I don't want to be flip about that. What I mean is that our children need a place sometimes, within reason and respecting other people's dignity, to be themselves. And group chat sometimes can be that place. So for that reason, it also can be a place of that really signifies a level of intimacy and friendship. And so being kicked out of that group is a really big deal. And so if we're talking 7th and 8th grade boys, and you look at them and you're like, sometimes we make the mistake that they don't have or need as deep friendships as 7th or 8th grade girls do. And that's not true. They need and they rely on their friends in very similar ways than girls. It just sometimes looks different. So that's one place that I was thinking about from that question. And then the other question is on the different platforms of like where people are just brought together. So if your child is being isolated that way, there's two things I can tell you. One is that, and this is really yucky to say, I don't like saying it, is that this is going to happen, which does not make it right and does not make it less painful, but it is a sort of rite of passage for most of us to not be included in something. And that's what is happening now. This is the venue in which this is happening now. Does that make it less painful? No. Does it make it less important to your child? No. So I'm not dismissing it or demeaning it at all. I think what it needs to be is in context of like, there's a fracture in the friendship or a fracture in the group. What I would do with your child is, if this is happening, if they know them, if these are important friendships to them, is that I would have your child write down on their phone, or just tell you, or even draw it, frankly, if that's their preferred, if they're really, actually, if they're young, or if it's their preferred way of doing it, is what are the 3 things that they have to have in a friendship? And so most kids will say like loyalty, honesty, like I can hang out and be myself. And so your job as an adult in their life is to say, well, what does loyalty look like to you? Or what does honesty look like? Because honesty could be really yucky, right? Like the way people are like, I'm just being honest, then totally trash you. Or loyalty could be being like agreeing with the person who has the most power, but also is taking away the dignity of other people. So ask them some clarifying questions about how they define honesty, or define loyalty, or define be myself, those kinds of things. And then what I would do is I would put a list of the people that, or the person that's excluding them, or that they're in conflict with in this way. And I would have them put the list, what are the characteristics that come to mind for that friendship? So you've got the characteristics you have to have in a friendship. And then you compare that to the characteristics that are happening in that friendship that the child is in conflict with. And then the child, not you cannot be anywhere near this doing like looking over, pointing out anything, is a child needs to compare and contrast those lists and see if the list of his friendships of those characteristics are matching with what they say they have to have. And then, because what you want to do is pull it away from the actual friendship and get to a place of, are you getting what you need? And are you giving, of course, what you need, but are you getting what you need? And what are you sacrificing to be in those friendships? And what are you gaining? And so those are the questions that are actually pull off the pressure off the friendship and get your child to decide, oh, wait a minute, what is it that I need in a friendship? And is this person matching with it? And then if it's not, then it takes away some of the sting, not all of the sting, but it takes away some of the sting
of not being included in that particular group because the child's identified that there are characteristics that they just don't want. So it gives them a new way of looking at, a new lens of looking at the friendship.
I love that response. I think we could practice that as adults too, right?
Yeah.
Like, model it for our students. All right. Well, I think we are nearing our time. That has been all of our questions this evening. I'm going to kind of ask Nancy to come in and help us wrap up for the night.
Sure. Thank you, Kathy. And Rosalind, thank you so much. I mean, I know that all of us have lots of thoughts as we sit and listen to you. But one of the things that strikes me the most is the idea of being explicit with how we as adults are doing as a model for our children. And I talk with parents about that all the time because I think that, you know, we want to fix, we want our kids, like you said, we want our kids to be happy. We want to protect them. But we also know that some of those experiences that are challenging are the most important ones that they're going to have in terms of learning how to navigate the world as they grow older as well. And so I loved the question the parent asked about how do we demonstrate optimism and you know, good energy when we're not feeling it ourselves. And that is, I loved your answer. You say, this is hard for me right now. Right?
So hard.
It's hard. It's hard. So again, I can't thank you enough. The kids so enjoyed working with you. I am grateful to everyone who showed up tonight. And without question, this could not have happened without the Upper Arlington Education Foundation. So many thanks to everyone there for supporting our work with you. I know that tomorrow you're going to be visiting the district counselors, and we're excited to talk with you tomorrow as well. So thank you so very much. And everyone, I hope that you got what you came for tonight. Yeah.
All right. Thank you all so much. Take care. Hope to see you soon in person or virtually, whatever you need.
Thank you.